Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. So this is my first game of the day today. I've decided to play this game. Black's moves are judged to be quite accurate, and white not quite so. Um, had some interesting themes and moves. The game was played at 10 minutes plus 5 second increment per move. The game was played at 10 minutes per game plus a 5 second increment per move. I think sometimes was going to be more accurate, more thoughtful, more tournament like chess than Game in 3, where you have to hustle just to make the time uh, allotment. So let's take a look. King's pawn opening. I went in for the Petrov defense. Petrov defense has the connotation of being dry, very dry, sort of dull. Doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. Sometimes, but I agree. Sometimes it is. One thing I like about the Petrov defense is this, right? And we're at the four knights. I'll be playing black, the black side of the four knights. I love the four knights. It's one of the few openings that I like to play as white, and I also like to play as black. It's just classic, strong, solid, good, like sound fundamentals with the knights being developed early and so on. But anyway, I played the Petrov defense. It didn't lead to that in this game, so not too much about the four knights. Here we are in sort of classical Petrov. D4 is acceptable here. Often we'll see here as my opponent played pawn to D4 or queen to E2 is also strong and played often with different responses. Queen to E2, you might play Queen E7 or Bishop F5 or Bishop G4 even. No, because that leads to the knight hanging. So Queen E7 or Bishop F5 makes sense here for black, but my opponent played pawn to D4. I want to pin this knight. Yeah, here I think my opponent needs to step Bishop to C4 is a very active move and strong in that way, but puts a lot of pressure on white to find a solution to the pin that the knight on F3 has been held against. Bishop C4, pawn D5. We see black gets out to a little bit of a development lead with Queen E2 pinning the knight. Yeah, and yes, D takes C4 is bad for black because if Queen takes E4 check, and then maybe scurrying back to avoid losing the bishop with Bishop to E6. But I don't know. I feel a little bit wary here about leaving the bishop hanging like that. He's not at risk in hanging right now, but anyway, knight to c6 is a principled move, a solid move, developing a piece. Remember, bishop takes d5, queen takes d5, protects the knight at e4, so that the queen can't barrel through. So we're free to develop our queenside knight, as I did to c6. Knight at b to d2. I think I pounced on this correctly. Knight takes d4. We're attacking white's queen. The bishop on f3 can't help all that much because the knight on f3 can't help all that much because after knight takes d4 and bishop takes e2, the queen's gone. Even if he doubles back and captures on e2 again, then it's two pieces for a queen, and black will have made out quite well in the exchange overall. But actually, to be even more thorough about it, knight takes, bishop takes, and now bishop captures on e2 instead of knight, because that way his bishop doesn't get captured by black at the end of things. Anyway, the queen move to d3 was the right move. I want to see how many good moves were there. Just queen to d3. Queen to d3 is the correct move, and by a lot. As my knight's under attack now by the newly freed knight at f3, as well as the queen at d3. Black decides to capture on f3 with check. Knight takes f3 check. G takes f3. Liquidating a piece here to make way for a nice check on e7. Queen e7 check is a nice move here for black. Puts black in a difficult position. Block with the queen, and then in the exchange of queens will have black follow up with bishop takes f3. Block with the bishop, and bishop takes f3 comes first, gathering a pawn and unsettling or requiring to move, asking to move the rook on h1. King to e1 doesn't really help because of the line played in the game, and that's bishop to h3 check right away. Bishop to h3 check. The king moves to g1. And now the shot against the bishop at c4 also costs white a tempo, because it continues with a shot against the queen at d3. It's a subtle move here that I think is one way for black to put the screws to white here. Queen g6 check is gonna end up in catastrophe or checkmate, one or the other. And at the same time, queen g6 also threatens the pawn at b2. So see the principle of two weaknesses. The unprotected pawn at b2. We see the principle of two weaknesses. The unprotected pawn at b2 and the vulnerable king along the g file. Bishop e7. Queen a4 check, and then b5 gets the job done. After queen takes b5 check, then pawn to c3. Sorry. After b5 gets the job done. After queen takes b5 check, then pawn to c6. And white is desperate to throw away the exchange here. No problem for black though, recapture with the king. No further attacks just aren't sufficient. Maybe here capturing on e6 and then with the recapture, but that endgame is white will not win that endgame. So the queen moves over to d2 to try to keep things as dynamic as possible, but that gets away. Queen g6 check. When white blocks with queen g5, then queen takes g5. check. Capturing the queen while delivering checkmate all the while. It was a nifty game. Alright, I'm going to continue by playing a couple more live games. review this game up and probably put it out for the other position as well. That goes on too. Alright, there's all the way to checkmate. So, yeah, make no mistake, it looked like, looked like Black just didn't know what was going on. That's not true. This happens from time to time to even to strong chess players. It's a positional collapse. You lose something, or you have to concede some kind of point, and then you can see ways I can regain that point if only, and then this. And he has to find the best move as a follower. But then sometimes the best move is found, but then again, he'll only do well if, and then this. But yeah, that's all. Look, my opponent even here, after this is called a great move, knight to e5 check, and then the king moves to e7. Who knew? Who knew a few 10 moves ago that White would have this amazing c pawn, right? So that's all I mean by that. And yeah, okay, so maybe king to e7 wasn't the strongest move. We would probably put king to e8 instead. Let's consult with our Silicon friends. King to e8 is bad. King to d8 is bad. King c8 has the computer evaluating this position at even. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't know that. If I'm black, right? If I'm playing black here, I wouldn't have thought of king c8 here. We're giving up a pawn on f7 tempo because of the attack against h8. It's the king's right outside of the scope of this now f7 knight's attack. But yeah, the black's position collapsed for reasons other than material. This is not a favorable position. Passed on the c file. White has some very active pieces and pawns, a really strong pawn chain. More active pieces and pawns down here closer to White's king. Black might capture on a2, but who cares? Yeah, and Black's king is way out of position. He can't castle. There's no queen to help with the defenses. It's a positional collapse. It happens. It happens to strong players. So I decided here pushing the pawn to c6 was best. My idea was the d square is covered right now. The d7 square is covered, or at least contested right now. By the time the pawn gets to c7, the d8 square will be covered. This pawn is, I don't know if it's unstoppable, but this is a very serious threat. Push to c6. I'm interested to see what the computer thinks about pawn to c6. Okay, computer thinks it's best. And wants the knight to help defend against promotion with knight a6. The problem is c7 anyway. And then what are we thinking? Rook to c8, and it's more of a standoff than it would be otherwise. Let's see if that's what the computer thought. Knight to a6, c7, rook c8, and then white's rook gets more active. Not to, yeah, because the pawn, so rook to c6. It's not as obvious. There's tension there, and white has a better position, but black is just barely holding in terms of material and preventing the promotion on c8. What honestly I thought in the game is here with black to move. Knight takes c6. You lose a knight for a pawn, or you lose a knight pretty much outright, but that's what I thought during the game, and the computer found a better continuation after knight a6 instead of c6. So the pawn grab on a2 gets white more than enough time to make at least a minor piece out of the promotion threat. It actually looks like now promotion is unstoppable. And yeah, it took some time. So this is like, people talk about the tyranny of choice. It's an idea from psychology. You have 3 really awesome sodas to choose from. Which the heck one are you gonna choose from? Or how about each of them have a no sugar companion, and those are awesome too, and they all 3 also have a diet. I mean, which one do I even choose? Orange juice. Okay, like that. This is kind of what white's going through. Do I trade knights first? Should I be glad to promote, and that's that? Should I capture when I promote? Even in the face of knight takes b8 immediately after. There's a ton of good moves for white. It's a tyranny of choice. That's I'd say that's included in many positional collapses. It's not necessary, but a lot of times in a positional collapse, that's what happens. Queen to c8, knight takes e5, pawn takes e5, and just white is mopping up. I capture here because it's exchange of pawns before the capture doesn't. Looks like there's a mate and 2 involved, but white's got. This is actually not the tyranny of 2 choice anymore, because before I was like, back here I was thinking like, these are all good options. Which one do I do? Oh, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. The clock's sort of winding down. That's the tyranny. Now that after winning a full queen and trading some minor pieces, this isn't tyranny of 2 choice anymore. This is the triumph of 2 choice. This isn't the tyranny of too much choice anymore. This is the triumph of too much choice, or the triumph of a lot of choice, however it is. Anyway, stick with me here, folks. And some of these moves are just gonna make the position collapse completely. I don't know why e takes f6 check was judged to be. Oh, I know, because it's a mate in 2 somehow. Rook c7. The computer is nodding me towards rook c7 check and knight d7. So let's try that. Rook c7, check. And my opponent plays knight to d7. Oh, this is not in practice. Q. And just queen takes. I think either queen or rook can capture here. Alright. That goes. What's this? This is a different finish to the same game, I think. I'm interested in. Let's see. Alright, similar overall feel to the analysis, and that's fine. Alright, so, alright my friends, thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.